Good evening, Bronx, and welcome to your New York City Reform and Reinvention Collaborative Listening Session. I'm Chief Juanita Holmes, Chief of Collaborative Policing, and I want to just start by thanking each and every one of you for your presence here this evening. It truly speaks volumes to your commitment and willingness in being heard. I'm going to begin by introducing our dais, our Police Commissioner, the Honorable Dermot Shea, Office of First Deputy Commissioner, Assistant Chief Matthew Pontello, Patrol Borough Commander of the Bronx, Assistant Chief Kenneth Lear, President and CEO of the New York Urban League, and our co-sponsor for the evening, Ms. Arva, who's running a little late, but she will be joining us shortly. Mayor's Office of Community Affairs Director Miguel Rondon, and then also, last but not least, Senior Program Director from the Bronx Rises Against Gun Violence, also known as BRAG, Mr. David Caba. Thank you all for being here this evening. We will now hear from our Police Commissioner.
Good evening, everyone, and it's great to be back in the Bronx. Thank you. It's our fourth listening session, if you will, fourth of 8. But this is the only one where I'm coming home. And I started here right in the 46th precinct almost 30 years ago, so it is really nice to be back. I plan on being pretty quiet tonight and listening, and I've been told to do that, number one, and I think I'm here to hear you, and I'm here to hear everyone as the calls and the texts come in from online. So that's my goal, and I think I'm going to sum it up at the end of the night and pass it off. But before I do and before I forget, I also want to thank everyone that's working the controls over here, because pulling this all together. So look forward to a real talkative night, hopefully. And I'm going to pass it back to Juanita. Juanita?
Thank you, Commissioner. So I'll just give you a little brief overview. Most of you probably familiar with police reform and reinvention. A listening session. We're truly here to hear you and your concerns. We want to know, how can we restore your trust and your faith in your police department, because we are your police department. With that being said, tonight is going to be a 2-hour agenda. It will be 90 minutes of community discussion. So those of you present and those of you virtual in our virtual world, please feel free to ask any questions or any comments that you may have. We're here to answer them. But with that being said, also, please keep it probably to 2 minutes, because we want to allow other people to speak, or at least make a comment. How can you contribute? If you are in our Zoom world, use your chat feature, and you can input your comments or questions. Also, to request an opportunity to speak. If you're on Facebook Live, please use the comment box for any comments or questions. But remember, after tonight's session, watch a full video of tonight's event, can be viewed, materials and resources, and complete our survey at nyc.gov/NYPD/reform. Thank you. Okay, so I'll just talk a little bit about the police department, just a little bit of our history. I did say why we're here this evening. I just really want to emphasize on, please, there is no silly idea. There are no silly questions. We work for you. We all took an oath to protect and serve you, the people of New York City, and we want to hear from you. We need you, right? Community engagement is very important to us. This is nothing new to us. We're ever evolving when it comes to community engagement. If you can think back, in 2015 is when we transitioned to neighborhood policing, right? And we have over 1,000 members now in every precinct throughout New York City. So with that being said, it's very important that we continue, right? I often say that, continue a dialogue, whether it's through the Builder Block meetings or if it's through your community council meetings. But we need you, and we need to hear your voice, your concerns, and you're entitled to that, right? I can't emphasize enough how important it is to us right now to restore the faith and trust in the people of New York City. So please, just keep that in mind. Also, community engagement had a lot to do with precision policing. If you look back almost a decade, we're down 49% in arrests. We've issued 83% less criminal court summonses, and that's significant. That's significant when you think about it. So we want to speak a little bit about my position. Most of you must know, probably from the news, that I'm newly placed in this position by our wonderful police commissioner. I've probably been here maybe a month, a little over. I've lost track of time. But what does my position consist of? This position consists of ensuring that we establish relationships, foster relationships, strengthen relationships, and not just with city agencies or our government partners, but more importantly, with the community of New York City. We want to make sure that you have access to services. If you think about it, if you've been in a precinct and had or know someone that's been involved in a domestic incident, we have what we call domestic advocates at the precinct. A lot of victims couldn't get to court, whether it's child care, whether it's because you have a job. So now we realize that, and we wanted to make sure that you were still provided with that a very important service, and that's why they're in the precincts now. Also, I'm responsible for in my office, being innovative in our thinking, not criminalizing social conditions, right? So coming up with non-enforcement solutions for the men and women that work for this department is a big part of it. So with that being said, I'd like to speak about our customer service initiative. So it's been currently a pilot in the 113 precinct, soon to move to the 25 if it hasn't already. But what that consists of, it consists of having someone there to greet you at every point of engagement, right? So whether that's someone that's responding to your home, you placed the call and needed us to respond there in a timely fashion, but also if you walk into a precinct for anything, to make sure that you're greeted with respect, that you're greeted in a timely fashion. Also, another part of that, because we still need your feedback on how we're doing, you'll notice that there's posters in the precincts, and you scan your phone over a QRC code, and you can go home at your convenience and just answer a few questions as far as how are we doing. I think that's the big reason why we're here this evening. We want to know how are we doing as your police department, or what could we be doing better. And I'm quite sure that fostering these relationships, stressing community engagement can only help us as a department improve. And that's what we strive for, right? We want to get it right. With that being said, we hope by getting it right, we can encourage our greater minority community to join us in a career with the NYPD. With that being said, I'm going to now turn the discussion over to Assistant Chief Matthew Pontello. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Holmes. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. I want to highlight a few of the more significant innovations that have occurred in the NYPD over the last several years. And this is not to suggest by any stretch of the imagination that we think our work is done. Quite frankly, to the contrary, we recognize that there's still a great deal of work to be done. And I think some of these innovations I'm going to highlight, it's important to stress that these are not necessarily unique to the NYPD. These are things that have been developed in large part in collaboration with community and other stakeholders. And the way we view this is that this is just part of these forums, and that's why it's very important that we hear your ideas. This is really part of a process of continuous improvement in the police department, right? Our work at doing better never ends. So I just want to talk briefly about training and the value of training. It's absolutely critical. I cannot overstate the importance of training, and it's not just for new recruits, right? We hire them, they come in, they get 6 months of training, that only really gives them just the basic skills to start on day one. Really, it's a career-long process that people should go through, right? People spend their whole lives learning. We want to make sure it's the same with police officers and the skills that they need. Also, we recognize that some of the skills we teach are perishable, right? Just think about our own lives, things we learned to do or we did once, and then we try to go back and do it sometime later, and we're perplexed, like, I used to do this. Like, how does this thing work? I forgot. I'm often on my tablet looking up some video on YouTube to learn how to do something that I used to do. It's the same thing with police officers, right? There are a lot of skills, technical and physical, and we really need to bring them back and you know, keep training and stressing the important things that they need to know and need to be able to do. So along those lines, we've expanded our commitment. Historically, like when I was a cop, we maybe had 3 days of training a year. Over the last several years, we've now expanded that to 10 or more days per year per officer. Also, you know, smartphones are not new. They're not extraordinary in any way. They're very, very common nowadays, but every police officer now has an NYPD smartphone, which gives us the ability to push out information and training material to our cops department-wide instantaneously, and we're making more and more use of that. It's a great way to communicate and give them information they need right in the palms of their hands. To date, I think we've pushed out over 100,000 hours of instructional video content to our cops. So that's helping us get the word out. And some of the key training courses that we've done over the last few years include implicit bias, de-escalation, physical tactics, critical decision-making, and crisis intervention training. Perhaps the most critical decision that a police officer can ever make is the decision to use force. And, you know, unfortunately, given the nature of police work and crime fighting, sometimes it is necessary, right? But through all of our policies and training and oversight, it's our goal to make this as infrequent as possible. And, you know, if you look on the screen, we have a chart up here, and I think this really dramatizes the evolution the NYPD has undergone. And this goes back to the 1970s. In 1972, in that year, there were 994 police-involved shootings in New York City. That's with a much smaller police force in a city of about 7 million people. Fast forward this year, we've had 29 this year, and only 15 of those were adversarial conflicts between a police officer and a civilian. So we've made tremendous progress on use of force. And again, our work's not done. We're always looking to do better, and this is an important area. And to that end, back in 2016, we revised our use of force policy, and for the first time, we established comprehensive reporting and data collection so we can analyze it and have follow-up, but also require that every use of force be investigated by a supervisor or a specialized unit so that everyone is being looked at. And that data on use of force is available on our website, so people can look it up and see it. So I think we're all very painfully aware that stop, question, and frisk was a tactic that was overused and led to a very significant erosion of trust between police and community in the city, right? So over the last 6 years or so, we've been working very, very hard to, first of all, bring stops down and make sure that only lawful stops are conducted when necessary, but also to begin to rebuild that trust. And this dovetails with something the chief said about precision policing and focusing our efforts. It's interesting, as stops declined since 2011 rather dramatically, major felony crime also declined during that same period, which is kind of counterintuitive. You know, some people were afraid, hey, if we stop being proactive, crime's going to skyrocket. Well, that didn't happen. And I think it really proves that this idea of precision policing works, right? If we focus our energies, work with community, and focus on the relatively small number of people responsible for most of the serious crime in a city, we can be much more effective. And that targeting a geographical area because crime is occurring in an area is not really effective. So discipline. We recognize that discipline within the NYPD is a great concern to the public. And I think that in part that's because for years discipline has been shrouded in mystery, right? There's been no transparency, and that's because of state law. State law that up until recently prohibited us from revealing information about discipline. When we tried to release information, we were usually prevented by the courts from doing so because of the law. In 2018, we brought in an independent panel to take a look at discipline in the NYPD. The good news was they found that overall the system was fair. However, they said it lacked transparency. So it reaffirmed what we already knew, and that because of that lack of transparency, nobody really got to see what we were doing. They also made 13 recommendations for improving the system. We have adopted and implemented all of those recommendations. Now, back in June, the state law was repealed. So we're in the process now of putting out more information about discipline. We currently have data about discipline on our website that goes back to 2016, and we're in the process of developing a dashboard to make it more user-friendly for the public to go on our website and see information about discipline and disciplinary cases. And that'll be coming out soon. We've also recently developed a draft set of guidelines for imposing penalties in disciplinary matters. We put those guidelines online. We had a period of public feedback. We got a lot of feedback from the public. We're going through that right now. We'll be making changes based upon the feedback we did get. There were a lot of good ideas in there. So we're incorporating some of that now, and then we expect by January that we will have a revised set of guidelines. So people will be able to see what discipline looks like and how it's handled in the department. And then, of course, this all, I've touched on this already, transparency. It's essential, really. So to help with that, we're going to be putting more information out on our website for the public to see. Now, for years, we've had data on the website about, use of force and stop and frisk and arrests. But it was good for researchers, but difficult for the public to just go on, and wasn't very intuitive, wasn't very user-friendly. So we're now developing these dashboards where you can go on. It's more of an interactive experience. And right now we have information about the demographics of the NYPD and also hate crimes. And CompStat 2.0 has information about crime in the city. All that's available, and more information will be coming online soon. So the NYPD has the largest deployment of body-worn cameras in the country. Currently, we have over 25,000 police officers and supervisors in the field equipped with body cameras. Since we began the rollout in 2017, we have recorded more than 13 million interactions between the police and the public, and we're adding about 130,000 new videos each week. Police officers are required to record any enforcement or investigative actions, arrests, and anything where there's a significant public contact or engagement. We're auditing those body camera videos to make sure that they're being used properly and that people are recording when they're supposed to record. And the videos are also being routinely used in investigations, including investigations by the Civilian Complaint Review Board. So those videos are being made available, and they're being used, and they're helping to resolve complaints. And they're also being used by supervisors to review how their people are performing in the field. And then body camera videos from critical incidents have also been released publicly. So we, since the rollout began, we've been releasing body camera video, particularly of police-involved shootings. We've been putting that up on our NYPD YouTube channel. There was a period of time, one caveat here, for about a year where there was an injunction that prohibited us from releasing video. So for that period of time, we couldn't release anything. But last September, we began releasing video again. That's all on the YouTube channel, and we're now going backwards to that period where we could not, and we're putting out those videos as well. So we're updating that page frequently. And then finally, we need to look internally as well. If we're going to provide quality police service, we also need to listen to and address the needs of our employees. And one way that we're engaging with our employees is through a series of forums on race and social justice. And these sessions are very emotional, they're very powerful. We're getting a lot of great feedback, and it's giving us a lot of ideas on how we can make the department more inclusive and more equitable. We're also supporting the health needs of our employees. So we're doing more in that area. And this is designed to improve resilience and also address some of the stress and trauma that could be associated with policing. And one way we're doing that is through a peer support program to help our members. So with that, I will turn it back over to Chief Holmes, and thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Matt. I was trying to give Arva time to get, oh, she is here. Oh, hi, how are you? Thank you for joining us. This is one of our co-sponsors from New York Urban League, Arva Rice. She's going to be facilitating this evening with David Kaba. So without further ado, I introduce our facilitators. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me just start by introducing myself again. I'm David Kaba, the Senior Program Director. Good Shepherd's been here. This is like home. We have programs around the corner from here. And happy that the dais is here. There's distinguished leadership of the NYPD, the Davidson Community Center, and of course those that are helping us put this together today. I want to be very clear in that as the Senior Director for BRAG, which is Pure Violence Programs and a host of other initiatives, we work in this very community to reduce the violence on a huge aspect level. We are not law enforcement. I am not law enforcement. I am a born and raised Bronxite. This is my home. I am you. I'm here to represent you. And one key area that I want to stress is if there is an issue, if there is an area that you think needs change, needs reform, then those are the questions that should be posed to this dais today. We want to hear feedback, answer what's been done, how's it been going, what are the results, how can we assist, and how can we all be accountable. Thank you. My colleague.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Arva Rice, and as you heard, I'm president. Little better, right? Good evening, everyone. I'm Arva Rice, and I'm president of the New York Urban League, and I'm pleased to be with you all this evening. I'm from Harlem. I hope you'll forgive me for that. But I'm from Harlem, and I'm excited to be with you all in the Bronx. And we'll be learning a lot from you because, like I said, I'm originally from Harlem. The New York Urban League is a 100-year-old civil rights organization working in the areas of education, employment, housing, and healthcare. And I'm pleased to serve as the second woman to run the New York Urban League in its 100-year history. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you all. As David said, I am not an employee of the New York Police Department. I am here on a task, and that is my only job is to hear from you all and to be able to take it to the New York Police Department, to be able to serve as that bridge. As I mentioned, I am a New York City resident. I have nephews, I have brothers, I have my father, and I've experienced a lot of the things that you all are talking about. And so we're very excited to be able to hear directly from you, to hear your issues and your concerns. If you feel like you didn't hear it, or we didn't hear it, we need you to say it again, and we'll hear from you again in order that we make sure that your recommendations are heard by the NYPD. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy lives to have this conversation with us tonight.
Thank you. So we want to make sure that we give equal time to those in the audience as well as our Zoom audience and our Facebook audience. And so let's get started. Let's get these questions rolling out. First question is from Michael Brady from Zoom. And the question is, what is the NYPD role in drug use, homelessness, and other issues? What are available enforcement tools? Michael, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I apologize. I was having a bit difficulty coming off of mute. First of all, thank you to all of the community residents, the community leaders, NYPD, and all the agencies gathered here today. I think there are a lot of different perspectives when it comes to policing, community policing, neighborhood policing. But I have, whether it's the murder of George Floyd or even prior to that, many stakeholders, small business owners, community residents, et cetera, do not feel supported by NYPD. And of late, the mayor has neutered, either officially or just in words, many of the enforcement tools associated with NYPD, but has not stated a plan or allocated those enforcement measures to other agencies, be it Department of Health, Consumer Affairs, any of the myriad of other avenues available to him. Now our streets are overrun with drug use, sale, illegal vendors, homeless individuals, vagrants, individuals in need of mental health services, et cetera. And there's no real enforcement entity to either handle those crimes, which are violations of city charter, connect people to much needed services, handle inequity, et cetera. And we feel like we're in limbo. What is the city's response to this, and why hasn't a plan been presented yet?
Who wants to take that one on?
Chief?
Just to give people a sense, there's going to be questions that come up, and so we'll ask some of the NYPD to respond to them, and then there's also other times that they're just going to be in purely listening mode, and so we'll want them to just listen to your feedback and your ideas and your suggestions. But for this first couple of minutes, we'll ask a few questions.
Okay, so it's Michael, right? Am I right? Michael? Are we still?
It is Michael.
Michael.
It is Michael.
Hi, Michael. Chief Holmes. So, as you know, I'm Chief of Collaborative Policing, so I'm probably ultimately responsible for ensuring that relationships are established between us and the appropriate city agencies, especially when addressing issues like homelessness, vending, things of that nature. As you know, funds have been shifted, so as a result of such, NYPD will no longer be handling solo homeless issues. DHS has been tasked with that. Operation New York City, I believe, is starting tomorrow, October 22nd, and that's basically any city agency or any community member can call 311 regarding a homeless issue. The only time 911 will be called if it's a safety concern, if there's drug use, some sort of harassment, things of that nature. However, we have also established a protocol with DHS to address encampment issues as far as cleaning them up. We know that DHS has probably approximately 600 members in their outreach unit. Their nurses have been furloughed, so where they used to co-respond with them, especially if it was a homeless person that had some sort of emotional issues, right, or mental issues that needed to be addressed medically. So with that being said, we rely on our EMS personnel who will respond, especially under circumstances where the weather drops below a certain temperature, and we know that they should be removed even against their own will and taken to a hospital where they can be triaged by the appropriate person. So with that being said, there are protocols in place. There are agencies that are being tasked with addressing homelessness, and DHS will have the lead on that. As far as vending's concerned, yes, I think we come out of the vending business the end of the month, which is approaching quickly and fast. With that being said, there are protocols that have been established as far as how we are going to address vending. And you'll be surprised to know that other city agencies, such as the Office of Administration Trials and Hearings, Department of Parks Recreation, Department of Health, as well as the NYPD, will be tasked with whatever falls within our purview when it comes to the vendor. NYPD looks like we're going to be tasked with if our traffic enforcement agents, if there's something involving them parking illegal, they're in a crosswalk, things of that nature, then traffic enforcement will do what they do and issue them a summons, and they'll be asked to move. Anything involving safety, NYPD. Anything involving vouchering of a property, because we have the appropriate protocol for that, we will continue to voucher any property if it's deemed by one of the other agencies that it's necessary to remove that particular property. So there are protocols in place, and you have to expect this trickle effect because every agency is used to holding the hand of NYPD, right, when it comes to addressing homelessness, when it comes to addressing the emotionally disturbed, and when it comes to addressing vending issues. So yes, it's a learning curve, right? And it shouldn't be at the stake of your quality of life, right? So we'll all continue to work together as we progress and move forward with these agencies being able to function on their own in whatever capacity. I hope that answered your question. Yes.
When you say vending, you're talking, oh, thank you. When you've mentioned vending, you mentioned the street and traffic and things like that, but we have tons of street vendors that are now in our small business sectors, and what they are doing, and I know everybody's trying to make extra dollars, but what they are doing is taking a lot of business away from our established businesses, as far as those people that still have to pay the rent and still have to pay employees. And so who is sort of responsible for that?
Well, I believe who would be responsible for that, if that's determined, that probably would go before the Office of Administration Trials and Hearings, right, to determine if they are in violation. As far as summonses being issued, it'll be the appropriate person. If it's, like you said, if it's a business that's within, on Parks property, it's going to be Department of Parks and Recreation. Or it may be the Department of Consumer Affairs, Workmen Protection, which is DCWP. So it depends what agency has jurisdiction over that particular issue. But it will not be NYPD addressing that issue any further unless there's some safety concerns involved. So there are other city agencies that are tasked with doing their job, and it's their responsibility.
Thank you. I'm responsible for keeping track of the themes, so thank you for providing that answer. But it seems like the issue that was there is just overall needing clarification and better communication as some of the roles of NYPD have shifted to other city agencies. And so that's something that we may want to work on, is making sure that we have clarity about who's in charge of what now, particularly since we're seeing additional people on our streets.
I also just want to mention today we had 3 Zoom bid meetings. Right? I don't know if you're part of a bid, but during those bid meetings that were chaired by Chief Jeffrey Madry, who's Chief of Community Affairs, as well as Inspector Jessica Corey, Crime Prevention, I made sure that I was on those calls, and a lot of the information that I gave here this evening was conveyed on those calls as well.
So we do have a hand, but I do have an in-person question that's connected to this particular topic that we're talking about right now, and our in-person is Wilma Alonso. Wilma Alonso here. Hello, Wilma.
Hi,
would you
how
like
are
me
you?
to read it, or would you like to read your card?
You want to read it? Go
Sure,
ahead.
no problem. All right. Quality life issues are impacting our commercial district. We are determined to fight for our businesses. What is NYPD willing to do for us and the over 300 businesses we represent on Fordham bid? So on that, I think Commander Lair can speak to that.
So I think what you're describing in your question is probably a scope of issues that would have to be addressed. The Fordham bid does encompass a large area across 3 different precincts, at least 3 different precincts, including the 5-2, the 4-6, and the 4-8. So what I would do is task the commanding officers are there, Tommy Alps and Joe Tompkins and Joe Seminara, to sit down, identify the specific issues, because you're talking about a long stretch there, basically 14 blocks from Webster to Jerome. So I'm sure there are a number of issues that need to be addressed, and as Chief Holmes just explained, different elements of these challenges would be handled by different elements of city government. Where we can help and where the NYPD has primary responsibility, we're happy to do that and follow up. Where it's got to be referred to and tasked with it by another agency, we can make that referral and coordinate that. But this is the exact form. This is why a meeting like this is good, for you to convey these exact conditions, time of day, the exact conditions. We'll get some people out there to make the observations and take the appropriate action to eradicate it as best we can.
Can I ask? So, if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is like we need to work with directly with the commanding officers and any of the resources that is on each precinct.
I'm saying that we're available to help in the role that we can. I mean, we can go make an assessment. At minimum, we'd have to do that to see if we have primary responsibility anyway. Where we don't, we could help make the referral, or get you in contact with the proper agency. But we're not abdicating our responsibility in terms of the role that the NYPD still has. However, there is some restructuring in who's got the primary responsibility for addressing these conditions. So, and it would help us too, because if a condition goes unaddressed, we want to make sure it's not us that's not completing that task. But we want the proper agency to be tasked with that.
One last thing that I want to mention is on Fordham Road, there's a lot of issues, quality life issues that the commissioner knows. I know him he was on the 4-6 precinct. And quality life issues are really bad right now. We have mental disabled people defecating on the street and using feces to do artwork on the walls. We have a lot of crime, a lot of shootings. We have a lot of assaults, fights, and we feel that those are issues that relate to public safety. So I understand that there are other issues where NYPD was sharing responsibility, and in the past was kind of carrying most of the responsibility. We understand all that, but every time during the past 6 months, every time that we reach out to another city agency, what they tell us is that the inspectors are not allowed to be out on the street to do enforcement because they need to do it with NYPD, and NYPD is not doing it.
And I think that goes to what Chief Holmes was talking about through this implementation and this basically evolution of responsibilities and basically duties and responsibilities and shared responsibility, and where it's specific to an agency. These are things that have to be ironed out. Do you want to take that, Chief?
I just want to say, I heard this today, right? Listen, we're still the police, right? And I say that all the time. We have police business to do. We're still the police, right? So with that being said, if you're experiencing something where you're calling at least you think you're calling the appropriate agency, right? And then they say, we're not doing this because we're not doing, that needs to be brought to the attention of, first and foremost, I would bring it to the attention of your elected officials, right? But also, that's not solving the problem. So if you bring it to the attention of your COs, your NCOs, then hopefully we can mitigate that, right? Because that's inaccurate. If it's a safety concern, we will be there, right? It's what we do. But something as far as a homeless condition, someone that appears to be emotionally disturbed but not a danger to himself or others, just, affecting your quality of life. There are city agencies that is their sole purpose for existing, and they have to be held accountable, and they have to do their job. But if you need our assistance in accomplishing that, we're always here for that. Okay. And your NCOs, a wealth of knowledge.
I understand. I know that it's hard to, we're trying to get clarification. I know if it has been a switch of roles, and we need clarification. The community needs clarification. But we're having the issue of a lot of crime on Fordham Road, a lot of shootings. We have a lot of 911 phone calls that we haven't received a response. Police show up after an hour and a half, and after that, it's not needed. So I just wanted to convey that to this group, so we can keep in mind that it's important. Businesses are struggling, and in my neighborhood, we have shootings in the day, in front of at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We have people going inside businesses and beating up employees. So those are things that we really need to get your support, because it's something that we cannot deal with it. So I just wanted to convey that and see how we can get into the path of knowing what we need to do as an organization to support our businesses, to teach them how to handle those things, but also be connected with NYPD on voicing our concerns.
Absolutely. And I can assure you, I know Assistant Chief Lear is going to address the issues that you just made mention of.
I want to recognize the gentleman in the audience had his hand up for a follow-up question.
Oh, thank you. I think I have a... First, I want to thank our chief here. Chief, my name is Nabi. For a lot of those who are here who don't know me, my name is Nabi, but my real name is Burima Nyambele. I'm African, Muslim, live here in Bronx almost 30 years. I think one of the big issues we have here is something we have to go straight to. That it's not just about police. I'm glad the mayor office is here and our city council also is here. Some of those issues are really to our policy makers. We have to be front to that, and they have to understand that. Because a lot of the things happen. I've been here for 30 years, and I know the first thing, even for business people, is first to have a security in place. Everybody know how much the crime in New York City was down. And everybody know before where we was and where we are today. I'm now stranger on this because I've been living here for 30 change years. I think the first thing we have to do as a community is to say to our elected officials, yes, it's great to take a law. It's great to take some step for the community. But please, before you do, have a conversation with community. Because if you do, a lot of the mistake we are today will not be part of that. Defunding or some of those issues. Because soon you create policy and security issue have a conflict. Criminals just come in and profit from that and make every one of us our life miserable. And we are the first victim of this. The minority communities. A lot of the time, it's easy for us to blame police, easy going, but forget about what is the root of the issue. So for our city council member, this is a pledge from me to you and the mayor office. Please, when we have to make policy, listen to the pastors, imams, community leaders. This can guide you before you go and have something in a law for the city of New York, because this impacts each and every one of us. We who live in the buildings, we who live in a crowded neighborhood, if it's a crime, how many of our young kids we go to bury every day? We cannot have the police to follow everyone. Look, our businesses, people, you cry. Because for you it's not enough police to come in to help. Because we have so much issue going on. The first issue I will ask the police and the New York City to do is to always listen to the community leaders who are the ground work people and help you with our young. Because some of these young do not see New York City 20 or 30 years ago. The only thing they see is what their friend or their cousin tell them. If they are lucky to be with one friend who's good, they'll be good. But if they're not lucky, it's not even our kid, it's not only our kid's fault. We have a responsibility as a parent, as a community leaders. So the only thing I want to ask today, and I first identify myself as a Muslim and African. I'm saying this for something because a lot of you, when we talk about minority, it's a minority in the minority, which we forgot also. We need to take seriously to look down to what we need and how we could have inclusion. When we talk about inclusion, when we talk about respect, transparency, you cannot know me more than me. But we have been all the time being represented by people who don't even know what our issues are. So please, I'm glad you are here. When we go into this reform, try to make sure the minority also is part of this process. I don't have a question. The only thing I have is for the mayor office and our elected officer and the police and all other community, let us work together. We know where we was before. We know what has been missing here, and how to fix it. We'll find a way how to fix it. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your passion. I share that with you. I want to make sure that we keep all those in the room, as well as on Facebook and on Zoom, engaged in these conversations. And I'm going to go to the next question, which is Christina Sparrock from Zoom. She has a question on CIT training that I'm pretty sure our Chief Pontillo can speak to. Christina? Seems you sparked some interest in training. Thank you very much. We do have a comment on Facebook. It's read only from Matt Sark from Facebook. Can we also have law and order lead by example? Citizens had to wear masks for months. Police, question mark. I guess I'll assume that means that they're not wearing their masks. They seem to have just started wearing masks. Christina, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm here. So my name is Christina Sparrock, and I am a mental health advocate, and I'm also I was part of the CIT training program as a panelist, sharing my story of lived experience in an effort to help officers learn de-escalation techniques and crisis communication skills. Just recently, the CIT training just got abruptly stopped. And according to the Gothamist paper, $5.3 million was allocated or used for 18,000 officers to be trained. If there is money sitting in the city taxpayers' budget, why can't we use that money for non-police responses to mental health calls and use it as a public health response where we could have EMT workers and mental health peers respond to people who are emotionally unwell? And please don't use the word EDPs, because EDP is a very stigmatizing term. It's people in crisis. Thank you.
And before you respond to that, can you let folks know what CIT is just briefly, and what the purpose of the program is?
Sure, absolutely. So again, Assistant Chief Matthew Pontillo, and CIT stands for Crisis Intervention Training. And the goal of the Crisis Intervention Training is to give police officers the skills they need to deal with people who are suffering some type of emotional crisis. We respond to a lot of calls. Sometimes the calls come in that way, so we know what we're dealing with. But oftentimes, police are called upon to respond to a scene, and we don't quite know what's happening until we're there. And then we can make an assessment. So look, I think we agree that to the extent possible, where other services can be brought in to deal with people in crisis, absolutely. That's a worthwhile investment. Better if we had mental health professionals to the extent possible. I think police will still be needed to respond when there is is a weapon involved or somebody's in immediate danger. So we're not looking to get out of that role. As to the CIT training itself, we've been running it for a couple of years now. To date, over 17,000 members of the NYPD have been trained. The training does take a long time because it's a 4-day course. It's very interactive. We have mental health professionals working with us, delivering that training. There's a lot of role plays and scenarios, so it's very, very real, very hands-on. It's terrific training. Unfortunately, when COVID hit back in March, by April we had to suspend a lot of our training because it is conducted in close quarters with people interacting with one another physically. So like a lot of our other hands-on training, we had to temporarily suspend it. Also, some of the partner agencies that were doing the training with us because of COVID restrictions and health concerns were unable to continue with us. So it's something we will resume as soon as we can. We're very anxious to resume that training and train the rest of the police department. It's an absolutely critical skill, and we believe very, very strongly in the training.
Thank you, Chief. You have a comment, sir?
On the subject of training, my name is Pastor Jay Gooding. The Citizens Academy for the citizens training. Is there any way, and I don't know if it's if it's in existence now with the pandemic, but is there any way that can be expanded also, maybe to boroughs? I'm a graduate of that maybe 10 years ago, and I think it'd be something that's powerful for the citizens.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you, and congratulations on being an alumni. Very, very important program to us. Again, because of the health crisis, we've had to suspend the courses, but it's another program that is very, very valuable. We want to resume that as soon as we can, and we're even looking at other options, online, maybe virtual engagements. But no, we will resume as soon as we can.
Can it be expanded to maybe each borough? Because I know when we used to go down to the 21st Street. I think that was the academy back there, back when Commissioner Kelly was the commissioner. Is there any way to expand that to like each borough can have? Because I know they had separate nights back in the day.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that. I don't think we've actually considered that before. I think one of the challenges is having a suitable space in each borough, but something we'll certainly look at. Thank you.
Can I ask him a follow-up?
Thank you, Pastor.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Why do you want to expand it? What was it that you received from that experience that you think would be valuable and be valuable to other people?
It was an awesome experience where you learn what police officers go through on a daily basis, how even their life is, at the end of the day, they just want to get back home to their families. That's why I'm the president of the Clergy Council, the 49th Precinct, executive board member of the 44th Precinct. Also, I pastor 2 churches here, and also director of community outreach for Stand Up to Violence, which was a Cure Violence site. And I think it's so profound that residents know what police officers go through. I think it gives them a different perspective, a different outlook on policing. And I believe, and I would like to see it expanded, because back when I went, and I don't know how it is now, but again, like I said, maybe 10 years ago, they had like a night, Brooklyn and Queens came like on Monday night, the Bronx and Brooklyn, the Bronx and somebody else came on like Tuesday night. But I believe that if it's expanded, like to each borough, that it can be, that folk can, maybe more folk can go, especially in times such as that we're in right now. With the violence and everything. And I think, even somehow we have to even get our youth engaged in that. If our youth can come, I think that would be a powerful thing for our youth to be engaged in.
Thank you.
Ma'am?
President of Throsneck Resident Council, I concur, Pastor. And that's what I wanted to say. If we can have that program for the younger people, I, too, am a graduate of that program. And after taking that program, it gave me a better understanding of the job that the police do every day. It also gave me a sense of sensitivity for the police. And not only were we given information, but we did role plays in that class. And I think that's what got me. And we did a role play where the police was responding to a domestic violence situation in an apartment. And that helped me to see just how dangerous it really was. Because I witnessed the police responding to a DV call, and then when the aggressor was taken out the apartment, the female then turned on the police, who was there to assist. So it helped me to understand just how dangerous your job was, and it gave me an appreciation for what you guys really do on a day-to-day basis. So I think our young people would benefit from that, because they really don't understand. They need to be able to connect. They need to be able to see that you guys put your life on the line every day to save our lives. They need to understand that you're not just here to hurt them or to lock them up, but to save them. And yes, at the end of the day, you guys want to go back home to your families as well. So I think the young people would definitely benefit from that.
Do you think the learning was back and forth? Do you think that the police were able to learn from your experience, from your lived experience?
Most definitely. Most definitely. And the officers that they had that was in charge of the program was phenomenal. To the point where
I requested to take the class again, and I was told that I couldn't, and I tried to sneak in. And they remembered me, and they was like, no. But it was very, very, very good. I recommend that class to everyone.
Let me just add a key component to this topic right now, if I can, and Pastor Gooding will know what I'm talking about. So as Pastor Gooding mentioned about Stand Up to Violence and, of course, BRAG, We're Cure Violence programs, there are 23 of them throughout the city, and there's a host of them in the state. And so one of the areas that's connected to this topic is everyone knows black on black crime. There's also brown on brown crime. And so when we work with our
and
youth.
white on white crime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right? Because everyone focuses on law enforcement and community, crime, right? That type of crime. But there's crime among them in huge levels, on huge levels. And when we bring these young people into our programs, we teach them conflict resolution methods. We teach them how to handle conflict instead of a violent way, a peaceful conflict way, resolution way. Because at the end of the day, they don't want to get hurt, they don't want to get shot, they don't want to really hurt anyone else, and they're looking for someone to step in. And we teach them those things when they walk in the door. So I always say, let's not forget about the community harm that the community is doing to itself. Because we focus on the harm that's coming from law enforcement, but guess what? We're harming ourselves on a regular basis, and let's not forget that, because prior to all this that has occurred this particular year, it was that issue. That was the main issue. That was a driving force behind why Cure Violence came to New York City in the first place. Ma'am?
Hello, my name is Irene Estrada. I'm the newly elected district leader for the 80th Assembly. It's hard to talk to with this mask. Freedom. So not only am I an elected official now, that I support police. Our elected officials have not been supporting our police. When you have reform together, we go to the community. I'm a clergy. We sit with the clergy. We sit with the pastors and our community leaders. What do you want? How should we do what we do? Because it's our community. It's our streets. It's our kids. It's our buildings. Tenants associations I did for so long. When Commissioner Shea's brother, Jimmy Shea, with Pastor Gooding and I were part of the clergy from the 4-9, we go way back. I was a part of the Citizens Police Academy, year 2000 probably, way back. So when you take a look at what they have said about the police academy, civilians, excellent program. I did terrible in the domestic violence. I was a cop. I shot the perp and I also shot the victim. So I didn't, trust me, when you're in a crime scenario like that, you say, well, kids need to be exposed to this. I agree 100% with Monique. But where do these kids go to? Explore programs that are free with the NYPD. I ran that program for 8 years at the 4-9 with Officer McDonald. We sent those kids to camp every year for free. For free. 2 weeks at Fordham University, they know everything about police. The same training they have is the same training the kids get. Felonies, misdemeanors, they know everything. So when you're walking down the block and you get in trouble, the first thing that's going to go through your mind is that a felony? Is that a misdemeanor? I'm out. I'm going home. And they get the same training for free. The last week, they go to Monticello for a camp, water rafting, canoeing, and rappelling for free. These are things that we as a community leaders and clergy can respond by participating. So kids say, I don't want to participate because that's blue. Well, then you're losing out on fun. You're losing out on going out. You're losing out on learning the law that's going to protect you, because the same law is going to protect you in a different state, in a different neighborhood. So the reason I'm here today is because I want to make sure the police know we're here for them. How many of you guys are here for them? We are here for you. We pray for you, for the covering that God protects you and your children and our children, because my daughters are officers as well. But I am here to tell you one thing that I want you to, how can we throw them under the bus and defund them? How can we allow our political officials to throw them under the bus and defund them, but yet we don't make our mayor's wife accountable for $850 million that belongs to who? Mental illness. And that's why the homeless is on the street. Who's going to make her accountable? Who is going to make our elected officials for the Bell reform that he spoke about? I'm a Democrat, elected official. How in the world are we going to make them accountable for the chaos that we have been living with since March, since January and February? We're tired. But I'm not looking to them. Notice I'm not talking to them. Because from the restructuring of the police department, they have taken away a job, homelessness, that belongs to the Department of Homelessness. They have taken away the job of sanitation because that belongs to sanitation. They have taken away, let me raise your child and let me teach your child how to behave. That's a parent issue. So restructuring the police department is going to allow them, and should only allow them, to do their job for public safety and get the crime off our streets and the guns off our streets and get these criminals off our streets so that we can sleep better. Am I right? So how do we as pastors, clergy, and community stand up together? Go back to our communities and say, I stood for you because I didn't defund them and I'm going to back them. So now our job as community and clergy and elected officials, newly elected, is to go ahead and vote. Vote anything out that is not for your district and your community. And we cannot allow them to be defunded, because did you know out of that $1 billion that was defunded, I went to a meeting and they told us how much of that money was going to be allocated for different things. $850 million again went into the pocket of who? The mayor's wife, which she just lost $850 million. Now, and just recently, she got another 200 million. So before I leave, I want to make sure that you understand that I am with you, that we back the NYPD, and we work together as a community, as the Bronx, because the Bronx is God's country, and we're taking it back, because what the devil meant for bad, the Lord's going to turn it around for his people.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. In the spirit of keeping everyone engaged, again, I want to reach out to those on the book. Maybe you don't know the young people who call Facebook the book, right? You know? And they're a big part of tonight's conversation. So we do have a question from Facebook from Ken. The question is, I'd like to see an expansion of PAL and their engagement in broader programs. Creation of safe spaces similar to that done on Cortlandt and 152nd Street in the 40th Precinct, increase mentorship, expand youth recruitment programs. That may be an overlapping question for Chief Holmes as well as Commander Lear.
Okay. So with that being said, we also want to see that, the police department. And at the start of 2020, I can say that Commissioner Shea actually made a commitment to addressing our youth, right? It was a part of the community that we were missing. And with that being said, we had a total, I believe, about 330 officers taken and put into the position of YCOs, with his youth coordinating officers, which is to bolster the neighborhood policing philosophy. And unfortunately, we were met with COVID. And that's exactly what happened. This was just us thinking strategically, how can we bring resources and opportunities to the children in New York City? And not just the children that may have had some sort of interaction with the police, all children, right? All children. And we launched an opening. We had a grand opening at 127 Penn, which is in Brooklyn, which was a PAL that was there when I was working in Brooklyn, that was underutilized. And I wish you could have seen this grand opening, probably about almost 800 children from East New York that was in attendance. So when people say children don't like the police, trust me, that's not the case. And I think sometimes we lose perspective of how many people are in New York City, over 9 million. So think about how many children are here. And those officers have since been deployed to precincts just to specifically address anything to do with youth. So it's quite unfortunate that we were met with COVID, but this too shall pass. And I guarantee you that when it does, that you'll see it up and running again.
Thank you, Chief. We do have a question from Zoom. Ramona Ferreira on community engagement. Ramona?
Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Ramona, go, please.
Hi. So my question is actually regarding the upcoming election. Thinking about the current dynamics between the community and the NYPD, I know that they just announced that we're going to have a larger presence at polling sites. And I wanted to see if you guys could give us some clarity, especially for Mott Haven, after the June 4th incident that we had here, and a really large show of force, which was found to be a human rights violation for some of our peaceful protesters that we had here that day. How do we, as residents of the Bronx and as folks that plan to participate in this election, come to terms with the fact that the PBA has stated their support for Donald Trump and that the police department will be present in larger numbers at our polling sites on November 3rd?
Commissioner?
I like taking it off too so I can talk, but I'll put it right back on. Thank you for the question. I saw the article, and we did a press conference at One Police Plaza yesterday. As is sometimes the case, the headline isn't necessarily exactly correct. The facts are that in New York City, we're mandated by law to be at the polling sites. And this year, I'll hit my 30th year with the NYPD. As long as I've been on the NYPD, every election day, NYPD is at the polling sites to make sure that the integrity of the process is safe. It's the easiest instructions you ever get as a police officer. Keep the peace. If there's a problem, don't rush in. Just make sure everything is under control. There's a Board of Elections person there. You call a supervisor, and you just make sure no one gets hurt. We're not, and we have the integrity of turn those ballots over to the Board of Election so that every vote is counted. It is a sacred right. So the headline might have been that there's more police. It's actually not accurate. We're at every site. We're going to be at the pre-polling sites, which I think begin this Saturday. I plan on pre-polling because I'm a little scared of the lines this year. Everyone's voting, right? But that's the reality of what it is. To the question about the PBA, this is what I would say. The great thing about tonight is we're hearing each other and seeing each other. And you think about this agency that is on the uniform side, we have about 35,000 members. We have approximately 20,000 civilian members. That's the NYPD. We are the most diverse police department in the country, by far. On the uniform side, over 50%, it's about 53% of our members, the police officers and detectives and sergeants and right up are people of color. I don't think anyone should judge by the color of their skin how they're going to vote, period. And the union has a play in this, of course. What I'll tell you is, and I think the question is great, and I've gotten it a couple times this week, when you put on this uniform, there is no place for politics. There never was, and there never should be. And we view people as people. All the time, we're not perfect. That's why we're sitting here, to talk about it. And I do appreciate all the support, but we got to hear some of the bad stuff too before the night is over. But the men and women of this police department will be out there on Election Day to make sure that everyone has the ability to vote. It's incredibly important, whoever you vote for. And do it safely, peacefully, go home, and then we move forward together.
Thank you, Commissioner. We do have another topic coming through Zoom. I want to give an opportunity to someone on Zoom. Stephen/Daniel Baines. The topic is Black Lives Matter. Stephen? Daniel?
Hi. I was...
Go ahead. Sorry. Daniel Scott? Okay, Daniel, you there?
There we go. I was waiting for somebody to unmute me. Thank God. Okay, so this is actually 2 points. One, As a software developer, I'm familiar with this thing called the single responsibility principle, which basically says that when you're designing something and it's made out of a bunch of components, that each component should do one thing phenomenally well. Don't have it do 2 things and 3 things and 4 things. So this applies directly to the way that I think law enforcement should be structured, in that you should never be putting officers in a place where they can make a mistake. This kind of goes with what many people have said, oh, we should send mental health people to mental health emergencies. Awesome, that's a start. But we should look seriously into diversifying by role, not talking about ethnicity or gender or anything, diversifying by role. So that when you say, so you no longer are saying, I work for the NYPD, I am a police officer. No, I work for the NYPD, I handle calls for potential felonies. I work for the NYPD, I handle traffic. I work, so on and so forth. The second thing is, we know, and in a bill I'd written, that the single largest predictor of violent crime is poverty. Now, granted, there's really nothing the NYPD can do about this, but I know that the people who are at this meeting vote, and I know that cops vote, and I know that detectives vote. So it's very important that we be concerned with improving people's quality of life. No one wakes up in the morning and says, you know what would be a great idea? I'm going to go rob an old lady. That sounds like fun. Likewise, I really don't think the vast majority of police officers wake up in the morning and are like, you know what? I really want to shoot an unarmed black man. No. I think the fact that they are consistently put in positions where it's easy to become overwhelmed, and the fact that they're sent to respond to things that they shouldn't be responding to. I mean, you give somebody 6 months of training, and a lot of it's in tactical. Yes, put you in a tactic. Put the guy in a tactical role if that's what you trained him for. But there needs to be other people and other things. So, ooh, the screen just went black. So, in general, my summary is that what the NYPD should be concerned with is diversifying roles and making sure that officers are never in positions where they can accidentally do something horrible. And 2, everyone in this room should be concerned with making sure that that when they vote, the thing in the back of their head is no one should live in poverty. People sell drugs, 20% of the prison population, because they're poor, not because it's fun. People commit property crimes, so theft, robbery, larceny, because they're poor. That's another 20%. And according to the Prison Policy Institute, those are just the people in those populations who are just property crime, not property crime aggravated or with assault, and just drugs, not drugs with assault, with a deadly weapon. No, 40% of the prison population is, at least 40% of the prison population is comprised of people who can't make ends meet, so they have to commit crimes.
I appreciate that comment. I mean,
I can actually send the document I'd written.
Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate that comment, and it goes to something that was said in the room, or I can't remember if it was said in the room or here, but around resources. And the fact is that communities that are well-resourced don't have as many police, right? Because they have resources. And so I think that that's something that we want to make sure comes into this conversation as well. That if our communities had what they needed, that we could be also in a much better place. But you have the next question?
Yes, yes, thank you. Just a friendly reminder: it's 2 minutes. Let's try to keep to 2 minutes so that we can give everyone an opportunity to ask their questions and be heard. We're now going to go to an in-person question. In the house is Jessica Betancourt. Jessica here? Stepped out? Okay, I guess I can read the question and the rest of us can hear from the dais. So she is the vice president of the Burnside, Jerome, and Treatment Merchant Association. It's basically the bid. How are merchants, small businesses being supported when dialing 911 or even hitting the panic button? In other words, the response time should not be long. And this is right here in this community. So, Assistant Chief Lear.
Well, thank you for the question. Essentially, responding to 911 jobs is basically what the cops on patrol are doing. Response times are measured right through the year, weekly, 28-day, year-to-date. It's something that we monitor as an indicator of how well we're performing. So this is something that we look at constantly. There are different elements that occur during a particular tour. How many jobs are we handling at one time? Sometimes the radio is busier than others. Sometimes the nature of an assignment can take a couple of sectors off patrol for a prolonged period of time. So while they're addressing a particular condition, they're going to be out of the rundown. So we do monitor it as best we can. As far as the bids go, believe me, we want to support the bids. We want the business districts to thrive in the Bronx. But it is something that we look at on a regular basis. We measure it. It is a performance indicator or lack thereof, and it's something that we do address where we see deficiencies. And it's a constant process. That's perpetual. Something that we look at on a daily basis, tour by tour, sector by sector, and and there is an increase this year in our response times in the Bronx, but there were a lot of factors with that. There was a lot going on during the course of COVID, and there were a number of factors that contributed to that increase. And those increased response times that we took in April, May, and June, they're in the numbers for the rest of the year. So we do look at it even in the most recent week-to-date, 28-day, to make sure that we're improving on that.
Thank you, Chief.
And that's the second time we've heard that theme, right? So we heard it also from the woman who is a business owner in the back as well. So it's something that we need to make sure that we look at, but happy to hear that that's part of your performance indicators. I know these two gentlemen have their hands up, but I know that this gentleman has had his hand up for a long time as well.
Yeah.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much. My name is Bola Motosho. I'm a physician by training, and I'm also privileged to be the County Board Chair for this district, which is Board 5. And thank you for choosing this location for this town hall in the Bronx. We're very grateful. We don't take it lightly, and for all the chiefs, all protocols observed. Well, a couple of comments and questions. Let me start with the training, which is the Police Citizens Academy training. I was privileged to be part of the second set in year 2000, and that was 20 years ago. But the missing link between then and now is that I felt the police department did not take advantage of the alumni, because apparently nothing prepared any one of us for this pandemic, neither for the protests that happened thereafter, talk less of the looting. And I personally felt, because I had to send my certificate of completion, and along with that of the FBI Citizens Academy, which I also did, to my former commander in this district, so that we can relate to each other in form of line of trust and expertise, understanding that, yes, I know what you feel. We were looted in this district badly. We were impacted Fordham Road, Grand Concourse, Burnside. And unfortunately that night, yes, my phone was ringing out. I called the deputy inspector in my district, who is now retired, but they were helpless. Now, post that, because of my experience and training that I had both with NYPD, FBI, and also my circular job for the daytime, I institute something that we should be meeting with the police department every week, every Monday, along with the merchants, coordinated by Davidson Community Center here, Angel, and the Merchants Association, and also we collaborate with Fordham Road Bid. What's the take home from this? If these alumni are brought into play when this crisis started, I believe this dialogue will have gone way longer and be more fruitful by now, because you have the good Reverend there, you have several people that have done this training, but for whatever reason, I felt NYPD neglect in activating that resources to be able to help to connect with the community. But in my capacity of being the committee board chair here for about since 2007, I've been re-elected every year. It's not that I'm the best, but I only try my little best to understand that holistically, the problem with the community in terms of quality of life is much deeper than just policing, just much deeper than housing, education, and several things, and even health-wise. And we've made some progress. So on that note, I will ask that please, if NYPD can go back to the drawing board, look at all the alumni who are taking that training, activate it actively, that now you need the alumni, even before you do the next training, that you need those who have been alumni, that you need to bring them back to the table to connect directly with the various communities. That will help. Now, secondly, when it comes to a meeting like this, what I've done in the past, especially when we have important issues that I know that we probably agree and disagree on, when it comes to the youth, I would have preferred to see more young folks invited. Well, I'm close to, I think I'm younger than this man. Right. I would have loved to see more young folks invited for this kind of a forum so that they will be. And the reason why I bring this up is because I want to say a big thank you to NYPD for keeping New York safe. But all over the world, the youth have the largest population. And they are the in thing now. With social media, with everything else, with the smartphone, they're all over the place. And even as we speak, I'm going to also ask the good commissioner if you can export some of these outcome from this meeting when it comes to police reform to other countries. In the past, I'm aware you've collaborated with other countries, training them. But I stand here to let you know, yes, I've spent a quarter of a century, 25 years here in the Bronx, and I've only lived in the Bronx. But even as we speak, back in my home country in Nigeria, there is issue with police brutality, which, of course, just yesterday we had police using live ammunition against protesters because they are against the police. So please, I'm also asking if you can export some of this expertise in order to keep us even safer in this country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. And I heard actually two different requests for participation. They were from two different areas, but you were asking for participation for the alum of the program, right? And you were asking for participation for individuals because sometimes people put into place policies and laws that have unintended negative consequences. So I just want to I want to make sure that we heard that the request for participation, we don't want to just be the subjects of policing. We want to actually be actively engaged.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments. We want to continue to make sure that we give equal time. Again, a reminder, 2 minutes. Comments are being made, and we do have a large audience out there that's zooming in. There's also Facebooking in. And we do have a Facebook question from Aldo Rafael Perez. Is the NYPD willing to understand and work with deterring violence as a health crisis? This is dear to me. This is what we do in Cure Violence using a public health approach. I think the Commissioner.
And when you see me typing on my phone, that's taking notes. I'm not texting anyone. All right, so a lot of good discussions going on. Yeah, look how much time we've spent tonight, Michael, talking about partnerships, and that's a recurring theme, and certainly things that we could do better. But the answer is absolutely. Absolutely. We partner with crisis intervention throughout the city, certainly here in the Bronx. I know it's widely supported by the City Council and others. And I take the position of everyone has to join hands on this, from my perspective. We don't claim to have all the answers. I found your comments a minute ago very interesting about sharing with the other countries, but we do some things well. We need some help on some other things, but in terms of violence in this city, nothing is more important to us in terms of keeping the violence level down. And how we do it, we don't have all the answers. I think we do a darn good job at times when we have the resources and the tools, but we also know that we're much better, stronger with others. with joining in partnerships, as the bids are. You know, really anything we talk about tonight, we're stronger together. And certainly, you know, driving up here tonight, I put a tweet out. We had a young woman, 19 years old, in the Bronx 2 nights ago lose her life to gun violence. You think of the senseless impact, right here is right, you know. The senseless impact of that. And we made an arrest. Is that justice? I mean, maybe it helps the victim's family. But now you have two families shattered, really, is what you really have if you think about it. We will take any help that we can and work with as many people as we can to reduce gun violence in this city for all the obvious reasons, because it is destroying lives, and we have to do a better job, certainly, you know, than we've done this year, all of us collectively.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do want to recognize that we do have Miguel Rondon representing the mayor's office, and maybe Mr. Rondon wants to say a few words in terms of the mayor actually adding millions of dollars to cure violence, and is the mayor looking to continue to support that?
Okay, this is better. Hello, everybody. My name is Miguel Rondon, Bronx Director for the Community Affairs Unit in the Mayor's Office. So with regards to, putting more funding to cure violence, that's something that the Mayor set out a press release. I was very happy to work with City Council in providing that funding. And just a little bit about my role. My role here is making sure that we have a representative from the mayor's office to make sure that the mayor's office is also listening. My biggest role here is always to listen to the community, and that's my role 100% of the time, working with community boards, community-based organizations, in order to make sure that we have our eyes and ears to the ground, and we know what's going on at all times and what are the issues that you care about. I've worked with many stakeholders here in the past, and I look forward to continue to do so. I wanted to make sure to make mention of that, because if you haven't heard of the Mayor's Office of Community Affairs, we exist. Feel free to contact us. You can look us up on the nyc.gov website, and just know that we are available for you. Just to speak to Cure Violence, I'm not the mayor, but I do work for the mayor, and I believe that he's supported programs like these, and he will continue to do so. However, I say that via my words and just via what I know of the mayor and the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel.
Mm-hmm.
Sir.
And I'm going to remind folks we have 4 hands raised in the room, as well as those on Zoom and on Facebook. So if you can just be succinct in your comments, we would appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm Reverend Dr. J. Lauren Russell. I am the president of the 42nd Precinct Community Council. I'm also a clergy liaison, and I do work with a program with the New York City Police Department called Ceasefire. And with that program, I've seen something happen that I've not seen anyplace else, which is this collaboration between law enforcement agencies. Now, that's significant and important, because what happens is that not everybody plays the same role. And I heard someone say that before, but everybody has their specific role to play. And when they play those roles, then we can reach the community in a way that makes a difference, and we can cure the violence. We've been in situations before. And Mr. Rondon said something I wanted to share. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Rondon said something that I wanted to comment on. He said, the ear to the ground. See, I have a piece of paper in my hand. I take notes because my memory's not that long. I have to remember because I will forget, because a lot of it gets jumbled together. Just wanted to say that. Now, the other thing, there's some words that you guys use that I really like. Community engagement, extremely important. But I also text the board at the 42nd Precinct to find out what they may have wanted me to ask. And one of the things that they kept talking about was this quality of life. Noise, in particular. There's a noise issue. People ride around with the things blasting, and that's a challenge for us, because someone said earlier that when you have these quality of life issues, they escalate into other things. You know that, because if I'm not happy and you're doing it, then we're going to have a confrontation which can lead to the violence that we're so desperately trying to stop. And then this collaboration of other agencies. One of the things I thought about when I thought about the noise and ceasefire were the sheriffs, because the sheriffs are property enforcers. And so the police officers write the tickets, but the sheriffs can enforce it. Because if there's a noise pollution problem and they have gotten enough summonses, then the sheriffs can come in and say, you need to pay these summonses. If not, we're taking that equipment out of your car. The police doesn't have to do it, but the sheriffs can. It's a shared effort, and we can get work done in the community that will make a difference. Okay, there's much more, but that's it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. You have a question? Ms. Brenda?
My name is Brenda Corver Paris. I'm the president of the 52nd Precinct. I have been for a long time, and I want to share with everyone that I got involved with the precinct because my daughter used to get stopped by the police when she was in high school. Lived in Tracy Towers, and DeWitt Clinton is in back of us, but she went to Mary Birchman. So she got stopped because there was times, you know, Clinton was in and Mary Birchman was out. And everybody knows their child and how they are. So I know at that particular time, teenage years, my daughter had a mouth. So I had to let her know what she's supposed to do in regards to her being stopped, coming home and going to school. So that's how I wind up getting involved with the 5-2. I've been with them for many years. But what I would like to talk about, one is about the diversity. Yes, I believe we do have the most diverse NYPD police throughout the country, but some of the precincts don't make up what the community is. And if you listen to the community and me being a president, I hear that a lot and heard it a lot at my precinct earlier years on and even recently. But I have a wonderful CEO, and we were able to have a conversation about diversity, which was awesome. He listened to me because what happened was I wind up seeing people within our precinct that would have normally not be the first person I see when I came in, meaning now I see the patrol sergeant who is an African American. I see someone else at a certain level, I can't think of it right now, who is an African woman doing that particular job. So he listened, so I saw different changes. What I would like to see more of is more diversity within the NCOs. I would like to see that. I don't think we have enough diversity in the NCOs. I'm also alumni with the Police Citizen Academy, and I went a long time ago. My daughter was little when I went, but I felt dated. I feel that there was nothing I could do in regards to what's happening now, is because I went to the I went to the Police Academy a long time ago, and I know there's a lot of things that is now said and done in the Citizen Police Academy that I am not up on because of me being dated, you know. So I'm learning as time go on, and yes, I would like to have it where the alumni can go back and get a refresher. I want that. I want a refresher. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, because I work for the city, and hopefully next year I'll be retiring after 41 years. But it's so true in regards to the partnership with other city agencies. And I work for the Department of Finance. The sheriffs is within the Department of Finance. And what I wind up doing at one of my meetings was that I had the sheriff come in, because everybody sees everybody's cars are all the same color now. When, you know, I'm dating myself, when we were growing up, there were the housing, there was this and that. Everybody had a different color car. Now everybody has all the same color cars. So everybody lumps NYPD into the same area. Everybody thinks it's always NYPD is doing something. So what I did was have someone within our precinct get in touch with the sheriffs, and the sheriff came and he explained to everybody what their duties were. And that helped because people thought it was all lumped together. And they saw that the sheriffs did do something different, like what Reverend Russell said. So I wanted to know my biggest question, and we've been asking this for years at the borough, not since Chief Leffer's been there. How could the community council be more promoted? There's still people out there that don't know that the community council exists. And I know it's left pretty much on our own to be able to go out there and say, hey, we're here, we exist, you know, and we should be more of a main partner. I know they're partners, but we should really be a main partner with NYPD, because we have these meetings every month. You know, we get the conversation. You know, we have our own partnerships, you know, like David and I, we did a gun violence walk not long ago, and that was wonderful because we needed to do it because the 5-2 had a number of shootings. But we just needed where the council, there's more from you guys on talking about us. That's
Chief
what we
Holmes?
need.
Yeah, we can have a brief response to that request. And if there's anybody here who has not graduated from the Citizens Police Academy, can you please ask a question? Thank you.
So
go ahead.
So I know that you just spoke about the council meetings. Are you speaking about getting more participation with the council meetings, or go ahead, because I just need a little clarity.
Maybe sometimes like a little flyer done. This
Right.
is the city
So-
council, you know, something that, just like in the way how you'll do recruitment.
Exactly. Listen, I agree completely. And that's something I want you to know that we've been focused on as far as increasing participation in the community council meetings, the Build-A-Block meetings. We have something currently in the 113 precinct called Pop-Up Cop. So where they pop up a tent, and they're in areas that you normally don't see them, and they're there with information about what's going on in the community, or how can you, something as simple as recruitment or joining the police department and taking an exam, but it's where there's access, right? So community members, a lot of us work, we take the same route every day. It could be driving public transportation, and it may not be where you ever come across a cop unless some particular reason, you need to make a phone call and have one respond or walk into a precinct. So with that being said, we know that we need to have a larger population to continue the community engagement. So we ask that of you as well, but anything we can do to assist in that. We're also thinking about the delivery of the meeting, right? Just like we're doing now. Our audience, I'm quite sure there's some children out there or young people because they are tech savvy to begin with, and we're streaming on Facebook. We have Zoom, which has a capacity of 1,000 people. So even the people that are more comfortable in their home and maybe not feel like coming out once a month, that's a platform that we can try and reach them at as well. But anything that we can do to assist, Chief Jeffrey Madry, I always mention his name, who's our community affairs chief, and very passionate about what he does. Yes, is a key person, as well as myself, whatever I can do to get that off the ground and up and running, I'm here for that.
Thank you, Chief. I just want to make sure that we keep our Zoom audience engaged. There's hundreds of them on the line waiting, and we do have a next Zoom question. Bear with me, Pastor. Darlene Jackson has a question regarding addressing public safety with equitable resources. Is Darlene on the line?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Darlene.
How you guys doing? So I've been listening to a lot of the folks that's as far as the attendance from in person and Facebook and via Zoom. And I kind of feel like this discussion should have started on the premises of how we're going to address the root causes of violence and crime, which is clearly a public health issue. I think when we start the conversation from that premises, we could really start having a real conversation about how law enforcement, for far too long, the city and state has relied on them for far too long to address social and income inequality. And if you think about why people come in contact with the justice system, you know, or why do they commit crimes, or, you know, why they come in, why the reason of violence, it is a public health issue, which I think we need to start having real honest conversation about how are we going to address the root causes of poverty, which is the tales of two cities of why our current mayor was elected on that platform, and he has failed to really address, social income inequality in New York City. And I think when you think about people who come in contact with the justice system, it's people who have suffered from mental illness, substance abuse, lack of living wages, things that's out of the job scope of a law enforcement. So, as a public health issue, we need to start really having a real conversation about, divesting from law enforcement and really putting real equitable resources in our communities to really get to the bottom of why we have why there's an uptick with gun violence, which is my question that I wanted to get to was that, there's been an uptick with gun violence over the summer. And there's been a lot of initiatives throughout the decades about this gun buyback, through the precinct through New York City, which is clearly not ending gun violence at the end of the day. And so I think that when the NYPD start really looking about the access, why does our communities have access to this influx of guns in our communities? So can you start thinking about how to get to the root causes of why gun violence continues to perpetuate in our communities instead of dealing with issues on the surface? Because at the end of the day, you're just putting out fires at the end of the day. You're not really these band-aid solutions that's not really addressing the root causes of why our communities, which is clearly Black and brown communities, that's been suffering for far so long, because you have elected officials who's not really putting the resources in the communities to really address harm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So good evening. Hi. That's an excellent point. And I can assure you, and I've publicly made mention of addressing gun violence as a public health issue, because it's my belief that it is, right? Because like you said, there are a lot of social conditions that are involving. Whenever a person feels like I have to resort to crime, right, in order to eat, to keep a roof over my head, it's a lot deeper than the police locking someone up with a firearm and putting them in jail. And granted, we have an ever evolving judicial system that definitely leaves a gap for bad actors. We were met with COVID-19 as well as economic stress, just compounded with that. We see the uptick in the violence. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. There are a lot of social conditions that are the root cause of this. So it's something I publicly said needs to be addressed, just like we looked at the opioid epidemic, right? Mm-hmm. We had an uptick. People were dying from heroin, right? So then we got everybody to the table that played a role in it. And I'm not saying that we were the solution. There's still people dying from heroin. But I know that it's been reduced hands down by far. And I know that people that were users are not being criminalized as a result of being a user because you suffer from an illness. So with that being said, if gun violence should be addressed the same way, let's get the right people at the table. I think that was called RX stat, whatever stat we have to label this with, and just really get to the root cause. So I agree with you. It's something I'm committed to doing. So I just wanted you to know that it is something that we take very seriously, and we know that it's not putting a Band-Aid on it that's going to be the overall solution. But thank you for the question.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, I'd like to call on somebody else who's here in the room.
Hold on one second. I'll pass over the pastor.
Oh, but he's already spoken, so is it possible? Would you mind if we had somebody who has not had their voice in the room? Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Pastor.
Appreciate that. We're actually going to try to do a speed. Yeah, we're going to try to do a speed round so we can get as many voices here and not have the responses as much. It'd be terrific because I don't want people to walk away saying I didn't get to have my voice heard.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Nova Church. I'm a captain for a running group here in the Bronx called Bronx Soul. It's a free group. We offer to the community. People come out, they run with us, all shapes, sizes, ages. My mother runs with us. My daughter runs with us. So it's for everybody, and that's what we do. Okay, yeah, you gotta come run with us. I just want to make some comments. Now, I'm born and raised in the Bronx, right over here on Mount Hope Place, close to Tremont. Grew up right over here on Burnside. Now I'm on Bronx Park, by the zoo. 37 years in the Bronx I spent. School, the system, all of it. So I just want to give you guys just a little insight on this 37-year-old Bronxite. Now, I grew up single-parent home, Christian mother, good morals, good foundation. I didn't have the privilege like you guys in 2000 to attend that program you guys speak upon, you know, so amazingly. Because the year prior to that, in 1999, when I went to Evander Childs High School, they took my art program out. So, when I went to that school, and I thought I would have a great art program to participate in, they informed me it was no longer in existence. So this artist lost his direction. If you guys are familiar with Evander Childs back in 2000, it was literally the worst school in the Bronx. Every single gang existed there. I never became a gang member, but I was friendly with all the gangs. Got caught up in the system, got arrested. Went to Promesa, the drug program on Clay Avenue. Now they call it something different now, I think. Acacia. I went there as a youth. From the age of 16 to 17. I was in there for about 10 months or so. So I didn't have to stay in Rikers Island, right? In that program, it taught me a lot. Learned about myself, learned about addictive behavior patterns. So it gave me insight at a young age of how to break the cycle, right? Let's fast forward now. I had 5 years probation. I come out of my program. I got 4 more years left. I'm walking over to my program to pick up my paperwork because I got my GED in there, graduated. I actually finished school early because I got my GED by the time I was 16 years old. And I was going back to go get copies and stuff for my probation officer, whatnot. And I got stopped and frisked on my way as I'm redeeming myself in society, right? They stopped me, they frisked me. In fact, they rolled up in the car I didn't identify, so I was very scared because the car was approaching me. And, you know, I'm working, I'm doing what I got to do as a productive member of society, and I still got stopped and frisked. They asked me if I was buying drugs. I said no. I'm actually coming from Promesa around the corner over there picking up my paperwork. That's why I have this folder in my hand, right? Let's fast forward, right? I'm 18 years old, and I'm coming off the D train on Tremont Avenue. Coming out the train, I'm walking home. I was working at Conway on 34th Street when Conway was over on 34th Street as a stock boy. At 18, as soon as I could work, I was working, right? Get off the train, stop and frisk. What do I have on me? I have a gravity knife, which is basically the knife I use to cut open boxes for my job. I told the officer, look, I'm in my work clothes. I have my Conway bootleg laminated ID falling apart. This is what I do. It got tape on the blade. The officer said, look, my boss is here. His superior was there. He said, you got to go. You got to go through the system. What did that do? That started the opening up the violation for my probation. They sent me to Supreme Court. I got a letter in the mail. I'm like, oh, my God, what? It's Supreme Court. What is this? Go to the big building, right? They give me my public defender. He's like, look, just bring me proof you finished your program, you got your GD, you're working. By that time, I had my own apartment with my roommate, and I'm 18 years old. I was working on Fordham. By the time I was going to court, I was working on 188th in the Grand Concourse, 1 block off of Fordham Road. It used to be Urban Terrain Athlete's Foot. If you guys are familiar with the Bronx, you might remember that store. So I worked there, owned by Korean family. I was the only person of color they let get behind that register because I was such a good worker. Now, I'm going back and forth to court. Like I was saying, public defender told me, bring everything you got, your GED, bring you graduated your program, bring, you know, everything. I bring everything the next time I go to court. The judge, for some reason, remand. I was confused. I didn't even know what that word meant. I was like, what is that? I got to get ready to go to work. Well, why are they putting these cuffs on me? Now I'm on the boat. I didn't even know what the boat was. They say, oh, they sending you to the boat. What the hell is a boat? Actual boat on Hunts Point where they detain people. What the? I gotta be at work in like 30. Like, that's my mindset. Like, it was a mind. So now, I'm here today because
fast forward.
I have perseverance, and I had my mom, and I had a decent foundation, and I had Promessa when I was 16, and I had just the right things, enough of the right thing to keep me from continuing to go down the wrong path. And it could have been so easy for me. Let's fast forward. I'm 37 now. I was 30. I used to live by Holland Avenue. I was getting off the train to catch the bus, right? I'm trying to flag down the cab because it was like after midnight. I worked overtime, right? Now I'm working in Manhattan as a fire safety director, which I'm still doing to this day. I'm on the Grand Concourse trying to flag down the cab. This is before Uber and Lyft.
I'm sorry, with respect, can you please wrap
Police
up?
car roll up, stop and frisk. I go home to my wife because now I'm married, right? I go home to my wife and I cry. And I tell her, this is crazy. I've been doing everything I'm supposed to do. And this is still, and guess what they told me when they said, good luck with catching that cab. It was like, really? Y'all protected and I pay taxes since I was 18. So when people saying defund the police or reallocate the funds, it's for people like me who didn't have the art program in Evander. So when people want to get upset, I understand defunding sounds scary. But if we could take a little bit of the money and put it into the community, it could create more of a balance. And when people are cemented in their beliefs that that won't work, trust me, it won't work. But if we work together and we find the balance, we're going to have more success stories coming out and less gun violence and less poverty and less homelessness, all of that. Because there will be an opportunity for people like me who didn't have it. But by the grace of God or whatever you want to believe in, pastors, I'm here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For that.
Thank you. I do want to come over here and then capture
full
some, at
testimony.
least one or two from Zoom before we conclude, because we do have 8 minutes left. Microphone.
Thank you so much. Commissioner, I just want to commend you for the work you've been doing this year. You have taken decisive actions with the appointment of Chief Madry, who you keep calling, but we're going to start calling you too, Chief, and Chief Holmes. And I want to remind us that we are here we're here talking about police reform and reinvention. And so your story is what I believe I'm here for. But let me just also say, I also went through the Police Citizens Academy.
Of course.
But let me tell you why. I see it in two different ways. The first way, and I know, Ms. Rice, you didn't want to hear that again. The first reason was because I became involved working closely with the NYPD in my precinct, the 45th, which I've already told the commissioner is the best precinct in the entire city. Yes. After a shooting occurred of two young people in Co-op City, where I live, on a Sunday at 11 a.m. I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Reverend Dr. Deborah D. Jenkins. I pastor in Co-op City, not on the side where the shooting occurred, but I want you to get the optics that I'm speaking about. 11 a.m. is the church hour. Not one pastor, not one church leader came out of their churches when these two young people were shot. And that is why I felt compelled. My church was one of the youngest in the community, but I was waiting for all these sages, these elders to come out and take the lead. But God pushed me to take the lead on behalf of those young people. But and that was in 2013. I've been working with my precinct since 2013. I went to the the Citizens Academy after Eric Garner was killed. But here's my why. I have two whys that I do the work I do with the NYPD, and one is here with me. He's sitting next to you, Ms. Rice. That's my oldest child, Jason Alexander Jenkins, and my youngest is at home. She's 16. My children have been raised with all the right respect and everything, as others have been. But I'm here about reform. So I represent a group of women clergy, and we are calling ourselves Daughters for Justice. And here's the thing. We've been working wonderfully well with Chief Madri. He has been so accommodating to us. In fact, we are trying to schedule a clergy women's breakfast where he hopes to invite both of you because of your critical role in the reform for the city. And we were also happy that the mayor appointed you, Ms. Rice, Mr. Wes Moore from Robin Hood, and Ms. Jennifer Jones Austin from the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies. I had to get all of that out to get to why Daughters of Justice wants to be at the table. Because while Ms. Jones, for instance, represents a lot of churches within the city, as the doctor said, I think it was the doctor earlier, who said, so many of the community leaders that you need are never reached. We all know the great work that the Urban League does, but the Urban League, you don't know what I did in Co-op City, do you? You don't know because we're not often at the table. And what I'm asking of you, Chief Holmes and Commissioner, is to invite Daughters for Justice to the table, because too often we are in meetings at this level with you all, and we hear all the glorification. You all know that the people in this room already have respect for you. You know we're here because we're engaged, we're involved. I think we waste time with, and no disrespect to any of you, because we understand the depth of your work, but we waste so much time with the constant, when I go to these meetings, it's so frustrating. Because you all are some strong people to do this every day. I say it every time I do anything at the precinct. You have a target on your back when you put your uniform on. I'm only taking this time now because I will not have anyone say, oh, she's anti-cop. To the contrary.
Please conclude.
What I do believe is that we need voices of dissent who really will say, these are the things you're getting right, like I started with the commissioner, and these are the things you're getting wrong. How can we help? And I'm asking that you allow us to do that, Daughters for Justice. I'm sorry if I went over.
That's okay. Thank you. We do have somebody who's been waiting for the entire time frame of our listening session on Zoom. Mr. Romeo, are you there, Mr. Romeo?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Mr. Romeo. I appreciate your patience.
Thank you, sir. My name is Mr. Romeo from Young Kings and Queens Chess Club and Mentoring Program. I live in the North Bronx in the 47th Precinct area. I mentor over 1,200 kids in this area, from the ages of 6 years old all the way up to 25 and grown adults. I always said to myself, if you want to understand the community, you must connect with the community. If you want respect from the community, you have to invest in the community. I think they need to have beat officers, because I'm there directly with these kids, understanding what their problems are. And to me, if you're a precinct in that community and you're not reaching out to people in that community that deals with a lot of these kids, that means you're not trying to better the community, period. That's my understanding. And being that with these kids, I get different personalities, different perspectives on things. And the same problem it is, they ask me the one question: how do you want me to get to know the police officers in the community if the police officers in the communities don't want to get to know me? These kids are afraid because they don't build up their self-esteem. A lot of these kids have single-parent households. You have to make these kids feel a little bit comfortable and build up their self-esteem so they have a chance to fulfill their dreams. And I feel in my area that is not happening, period. What can be done about that? I think you need to oversee the community affairs, have them be beat cops, because how can you be part of community affairs if you're not on the street interacting with the kids? Or NCO officers interacting with the kids? How do you expect to make a difference if you're not talking to these kids on the street? I'm in the street, so I know what I'm talking about. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And one more on Zoom, please. One last question. This is Jessica Epting. Jessica, are you online?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I had a whole thing typed out, but everyone has taken a lot of time, and we're down to the last seconds. Please talk about June 4th in Mott Haven. Talk about June 4th. Talk about it. Be accountable. Talk about June 4th. Let's go. Now's your chance.
Oh, Mott Haven. Commissioner? This is the last final question. I think she's done. Are you done, Jessica? Yeah, that was it. This is the final question. Final question, yes.
Perfect segue. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to everyone. Is your hand up? Yeah.
My name is Juanita Jones. I'm the district leader of the 79th district. Back in the days when I was growing up in my neighborhood, I've been in my neighborhood for over 50 years. They used to have a police department for housing in 1385. They destroyed that. They took that out of our community. It was good for us because the police was getting to know the children in the community. So maybe y'all need to bring some of that stuff back in the community because it helped us. They used to play basketball with them. They used to play skelsies, whatever it needs to be done for them to be able to communicate better. This is my opinion that should be done again, you know, put it back in the community, you know, for the kids could get used to the police in their community. And we need more of our color, like the lady said. We need more of our kind working in our community. So that's what I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and it's a perfect last statement, I think, for the evening. Sorry, sir, but I'll get you afterwards. I know when I get the eye from over here. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, first and foremost. I think this is the fourth or fifth one of these that we've done throughout the city, and we're going to hit every borough. This is a start. That's how I view this. You talk about getting involved and having a voice at the table. We would love to have your voice at the table, and I'm sure Arva, you know, I'm never going to speak for Arva, but we want the more diverse groups, organizations, people that like the police. There's certainly some people, I know you support the police. That doesn't mean you can't tell us when we got to get better. That's how we get better. And I welcome that. I truly do. But we want to hear from people that like the police, support the police. We want to hear your stories, sir. I'm sorry I forget your name. We want to hear your story too. And you know, we talked tonight about quality of life. We talked about some crime issues and what the hell's happened in our community, right, with the business district. We talked about real life, you know, and it's not always pretty, and how it starts. And you know, when you talk about what you just finished with, 100% we agree with you. Sir, you use the word that I use all the time, balance. And what I would say here closing out the night is this is your police department. It really is. And we're here because we want to hear from you about good, bad, ugly, all of it. We also want to hear what you think. There's a lot of, everyone has an opinion in New York City. You know that, right? No one is shy about an opinion. Everyone thinks they know what's best. Sometimes they're right. Sometimes I learn stuff. Sometimes maybe they're not right. But we got to hear from you how you want New York City policed. I tend to think we need balance. I think that no one wants what's happening in New York City this year. Now, there's a lot of different factors, and people are going to talk about it, and maybe some people will be right, some people will be wrong about what exactly happened this year. Probably a lot of factors. We got to make sure people are safe. We got to make sure businesses can thrive. We got to make sure most of all, the kids growing up have every single opportunity. I am not a politician, nor will I ever be a politician. But I know that the most important thing that we got to worry about is the kids of this city. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, all of them. And I know that our class has never had an artistic ability in my body, but I know how important it is. I know how important connecting to cops is, to your point, that cops see people as not the problem, but people to help. That's what we got to get back to. When a cop car pulls up on a block, I've said this to Juanita, and I've said it to Jeff, and I've said it to Fausto, and I've said it to Terry Monahan. When a cop car pulls up on a block, people should look at those cops not as what are they doing, but maybe they're just getting out of the car to talk to them. We're not there yet. We are not there yet. In recent years, balance, we've cut way down on enforcement. We've cut way down on arrests. We've knocked the crime numbers out of the park. Still too much crime and shootings. This year is we've gone backwards. But we know how to keep crime down. We all have to work together. You, us, people setting policies, we can get it done. We got to get the crime under control, and we got to double down. When I took over in May, I was sworn in December. It's been a long year. December 1st. Immediately put resources into the kids of this city. Extra youth officers in every precinct to work with kids. I am incredibly proud of the work we do with kids. I don't think that a lot of people know that we're running football leagues, that we're taking kids on hikes, that we have explorers, somebody mentioned it, in every precinct. We hope the explorers become cadets. We hope the cadets become cops if they want to. Increase diversity. We are doing a heck of a lot. We would love for more and more people to take that journey with us. And I agree. I'm going to have a conversation with Arva after this, and Liz, who's over here, because we heard this, was it last night in Queens in Jamaica too, the same complaint. You got to get kids in here. We do. I mean, I love seeing all of you, but we need the youth. That's been a theme that I've hit Juanita for probably for 6 months, whether it's live streaming. If the kids aren't coming to us, we're going to the kids. That's the bottom line. So we are committed to all of that. Thank you for coming. We hear you. We're going to continue these meetings. We're going to push these this is the start, and then it's all workshops after this where groups like yours and advocates and people that don't agree with the police and clergy and many others, elected officials, all of us coming together, how do we move forward? The caller, I'll end. I don't like to end on a bad note, but I don't want to avoid the question. The caller kept talking about Mott Haven. I've spoken about Mott Haven. If you're not familiar what the caller is referring to, I don't remember the day now, end of May, early June. June 4th, thank you. In Mott Haven, probably an incredibly difficult, right, 2-week stretch in New York City. In Mott Haven, there was a large number of arrests made for curfew violation and other charges. We've been criticized heavily. There's been things written in the papers, frankly, a lot of it not true. What we know about Mott Haven, let's look at the facts. There was this is after days of police officers getting attacked in New York City. That's a fact. Were the police always appropriate? No. Sometimes, we're not perfect, too. I wound up suspending a number of officers in those couple weeks. Think of one in Brooklyn off the top of my head. I can think of one in Queens utilizing a chokehold. That's facts. Those were very difficult weeks where the vast majority of people, incredible moment in time, coming out, peacefully protesting. This is a part of that, what's come out of that, and I hope it continues. An extremely, extremely small number of people that we've seen in cities across the country utilizing the cover of peaceful protests and doing some pretty bad things. I mean, we've had cops, brake lines cut on cars. We've had, on Fordham Road, right here, You probably saw it on Twitter in the videos, like cops run over right here in the next precinct, right? That was the 4-4, right? I don't know how he didn't die, the sergeant. And cops stabbed and shot. I mean, it was a bad 2 weeks. That protest on Mott Haven, indisputable, was set up with pictures of burning police cars, and I can't remember the language that was used now, but they were not hiding what that protest was. It was essentially attack the cops. That's what it was. We disputed in the newspapers, not disputable. Person arrested bringing a gun to that protest. People stopped in cars with weapons and flammable things for that protest. That was down in the Mott Haven section of the Bronx, where there's also intelligence. We're going to burn down stores. As long as I'm the police commissioner, I'm not letting stores get burned down when I can stop it. And I'm certainly not going to apologize for protecting people peacefully and cops. So if we do something wrong, I'll be the first person to stand up and say, we did something wrong and we got to get better. The narrative that's being talked about from Mott Haven, I condemn and I strongly, strongly disagree with, because when you have people coming out and saying, we're going to cause damage to a community of color, by the way, we're going to cause damage and injure cops, yeah, we're going to enforce the law, and we're going to do it right. And if we're not, there's a mechanism to deal with that. I want to thank everyone again for coming out tonight. Juanita, team, Arva, and most importantly, everyone watching and everyone in attendance tonight. We could turn this around, no doubt. You can help make us a better and a stronger police department so that you feel like we are your police department. All right, thank you, and God bless everyone.